Hey everyone, so welcome back. So in this video what I'll be doing, I'll be starting again with Erlang programming, and I'll be explaining some basic data types and variables because they are kind of different in Erlang. That's why I need to explain them. And what is the intended audience for this type of videos, for Erlang especially? So what I'm expecting here is that you know at least two programming languages. One is either C, which is kind of non-objective, and one is objective. So it doesn't matter what objective language you have, object-oriented programming language, Sorry for that. So Erlang is a functional programming language. If you have any experience with Prolog, so that would help you a lot. And apart from it, there's no other specific background required for learning Erlang. But this Erlang video tutorial that I'll start, this will never be for a beginner. A beginner as in which is new to a programming language. Because I'll be skipping a lot of parts, I'll be expecting that you know something already. So let's just jump into it. So so we have like some data types. One is numbers. Number is basically integers and floats you can describe. Another is atoms. Atom is kind of different kind of strings in Erlang. Then tuples. Tuples is again they are kind of arrays but non-mutable. Then lists. Lists are like simple lists that you have in Java. And list comprehension is a separate thing. Bit syntax and binary, they are kind of a different thing in Erlang. So let's just move ahead. So variables. First, let me show you how to declare a variable. So this is a Erlang shell. So say for example you have to start it. ERL. ERL is the command that you have to use. And if you're wondering how to install Erlang, then I have a separate video which uses curl to set up a version of Erlang. So that is a separate video that's present on my channel. So in order to declare a variable, you need to start with any capital letter. Say for example this, and say we want to assign some value to it. So any expression in Erlang ends with dot, others you can, and there's no int, float, nothing you need to assign. And every Erlang statement returns something. You can't start with like this. This would be an error because in Erlang you can't start a variable with small letter. You have to start with a capital letter. That there's a reason behind it, so I'll explain. Override, you can't override a variable in Erlang. Let me show you. Yes, df is equal to 2. See, you can't override. And that too, anonymous variables, there are anonymous variables, and they are you can, I'll show you an example what anonymous variables are. You can store any type of variable without declaring a variable name. Those are anonymous variables. That's what anonymous means, right? So yeah, so what kind of numbers and what kind of operators we have? So operators that you have: plus, minus, multiply, division, those are basic operators. Now there's some other operators which are like integer to integer division and modulo, and any thing you want to like explain using bits. So let me show you some example of how to do this integer to integer. Say for example you want to divide by this. This is perfect. This is simple one. This is again simple one. Now here comes a different one, where different as in integer to integer division. So this is basically to get the integer part. So what you have to do is, 20, let's say 4 divided by 3. So what it returns me 1.33. If you'll say this, it will return div. So div is the, and to come up with modulo you have to use a remainder, right? So remainder is for modulo, div for integer to integer. Other bases, if you want to consider your values in some other bases, then you have to mention it in this format. Say for example is a variable to use the binary base, and say for example I'm showing 8. Oops, sorry. 8. and that's why, and why the error happened, it's because of the dot. There's no other errors. Let's move. So now what are atoms? Numbers are finished. What are atoms? Atoms are literals, and literals are in characters with where all the characters should be like small characters, no capital letters, nothing, and they are constant, and their value is equal to the name that you have assigned, and you can't modify an atom, not even a single character, and they are not strings. And so what an atom is, ABC, this is an atom. So if you write ABC, this is the atom. Say for example you want to assign something to it, a variable, this is an atom, you can't change it. That's what an atom is. And where is the use of an atom? That you'll come to know in like future lectures what is it, and it's like hugely used in this programming language. Then what is a tuple? Tuple is another data type, or you can say it's kind of a data structure because it's used to organize data. So what it does is, inside the curly brace, it used to maintain elements. So elements can be anything. Elements can be tuples of atoms, tuples of integers, tuple of integers and atoms, tuple of lists, tuple of tuples. It can be anything. And what are the basic uses? Storing multiple values at once, multiple written values. So if you want to return multiple values from function, return it inside a tuple. And major uses in pattern matching. Pattern matching is one of the major functions that features, not functions, features that is provided by Erlang. And size of the tuples are fixed. You can't increase it and you can't decrease it. Okay, so let me tell you one more example, because I was saying that you can't override a variable. Actually you can, but that is inside a shell only. So once you're working in a shell, say for example b is the variable that we did. So if you want to assign b like 2, value 2, you'll throw an error. So if you're working, and what you have to do is f is a, and now you can assign. So that works only in Erlang shell. That's not the part of programming language. That is the property of a shell, you can say. Nothing else. So let me show you. I was telling you what is the use of tuples. Say these are two variables I have. So I stored it inside a tuple, and what I did is CD. So what will happen? C contain. So now you must have got what exactly it is. And if I'll talk about an anonymous variable, these are like anonymous variables. They don't have a name. So what is the exact use? Say for example I have a tuple of, say for example, these values, and I want to say for example store only 1 2 3 4, only the last value, for example f. So this is how it can happen. That's the basic use. And some other things that will come with pattern matching. Pattern matching is one of the key features. So if you'll go deep into like the tuples, the major use is to maintain a key value type of storage. So don't go into hashes now. This is not a hash. And you'll come to know something about pattern matching. Now let's move to our other data type, that is list. This is again for storing, maintaining data, and these are like formal to all the programming language, almost all the programming language. And okay, so what are the basic operations that you can perform and how you can represent in list? So list can be represented using this square brace. So this is a list, nothing else. And why it's coming like this, that you'll come to know. Because by default, because by default list are strings. That's why it happened, nothing else. Okay. Concatenation. So that was the basic representation that I have shown you. If you want to concatenate something, so we were on the list. So yes, that's done. How to concatenate, what is the difference, and one basic difference in Erlang and other programming languages is that there's no loop in Erlang. So what you have to do, you have to do everything using recursion. That is a kind of inefficiency you can say in terms of when it comes to traditional programming language, but in Erlang, it's not there. They didn't design it, so there is an efficiency behind it. I'll show some examples of lists. I mean later on. Now there's a very decent concept that is called comprehension that has been introduced in list. So if you know something about lambda expressions, so lambda expressions kind of can be represented using list comprehension, and the basic idea comes from the set theory. So for example, this is an example where every element of set A, for each element of set A, what you have to do is divide element by 2. So this is basic set theory. Now the same expression that if you have, so what you need is these elements, you need all of them inside a list. So for each element inside the list, this is the element, this is for representing each, do x by 2, that means element by 2. And if you look into the generic expression, so this is the expression pattern, this is the pattern, and this is the list. And then you can mention some conditions. Say for example, if some value is greater than 2, then only divide it by 2, otherwise don't do it. So that is the basic thing behind list comprehension. So this is over, and I'll look into the examples only now. Okay, so let's look into lists first. Say I want to concatenate two lists 544, 5. So this is how you concatenate it. This is how you take the difference, and this is how it works. If you remember the basic set theory difference, most of the things comes from set theory, most of the things. And there's one very decent thing that you can do is using comma 3. So here what will happen, the first element will go into head and the remaining will go into tail. So that's how it works. That's how you can traverse a list using recursion. So people who know recursion, that's what I'm expecting, they should know something. So people who know recursion will understand it. See, so let's jump straight into say define a list A comma B, 1 comma 2 comma 3 comma 4 comma 5. So this is the list, and say for example apply a list comprehension over it. So list comprehension x multiply by 2. So for each x belonging to every element of list, what you have to do, you have to multiply it by 2. See what happened. Now say for example I assign it to list 1. So now this is, I have list 1. So now I mention a condition, if the element is greater than 4, then only multiply it by 2. X greater than 4. See, if the element is greater than 4, then only do it, otherwise don't do it. So 6, 8, 10 are greater than 4. That's what it did. So here I'll come up to an end of like the basic thing. So this can give you a head start with starting to Erlang. The future examples will, like the future lectures will use all these things like in a very extensive manner. So I hope you'll look into all the videos that are like coming again for Erlang, and thank you. Subscribe if you have liked the video, share it, and since I'm living in Hyderabad, let me say in a typical Hyderabadi style, subscribe करें या like करें, share करें. Thank you guys.